This is part 2 of my how to go in-house video, or what it means to go in-house. First, I just sort of wanted to talk about my story and why I went in-house. I kind of want to give you guys some tips if you are interested in going in-house. And probably the best route is to go from a law firm to in-house counsel. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Brittany and I'm a lawyer living in New York City. If you've been following, you know we are in the Life as a Lawyer series. And as I mentioned, this is part 2 of my how to go in-house video, or what it means to go in-house. In my previous video, I talked about the pros and the cons and what it meant to actually go in-house, because I throw around this term a lot and a lot of people, I know I hadn't heard about it until I was basically almost ready to graduate from law school. So if it's not something that you've heard of before, it might be a viable option for you if you're not looking to go into litigation, or you want better work-life balance, or maybe you've heard of this glorious term of going in-house but you're not really sure how to take the first steps in doing that. So first, I just sort of wanted to talk about my story and why I went in-house. I remember, as I mentioned, in law school I did a summer internship in family law because that's what I thought I wanted to do. In college I did a domestic violence restraining order clinic, and so that was sort of something I was interested in because family law, a lot of people think that it's about divorce and child custody, but I was kind of sort of interested in families and how to help them even though they're going through this difficult time. Now, family law is difficult. It's not for everyone. It's really heartbreaking. It's hard because people are in almost the worst situation possible. They're crabby, they're not happy, they don't want to be seeing you, and you have to pry into their lives, and it just gets really nasty. So by the end of my 3L year, I sort of knew I didn't want to do it anymore, even though I had been working for a solo practitioner for almost 2 years in law school, my 2L and 3L year. And my boss had said that he would hire me again after I graduated and passed the bar exam. So it was basically an easy route, but I thought to myself, do I really want to go down this path? I saw how nasty it could get, and I also didn't want to go to court. And in family law, you're constantly being drawn into court, fighting over custody battles and other things. So when my boss told me about his previous law clerk that studied under him, he told me that she actually found the dream job of going in-house. And I thought to myself, that seems interesting. So I did a little bit of research into it, and I realized that if you go in-house, it means you work in a company, you don't go to court, you probably have better work hours. And as someone who wasn't necessarily keen on going into a law firm, I thought, why wouldn't I want to work in a company and get all those benefits and have like a normal job with my law degree? So because that was in March or April of my 3L year, like I explained in my tips on how to get a job, you can click up here to watch that, I started looking for jobs. I had no idea what I was looking for, but I just looked at random companies and I looked in their legal or law department listings. I looked on Monster, I looked on Indeed, LinkedIn, I looked everywhere, and I found all these random legal assistant type jobs or counsel jobs. And I will admit the counsel jobs were a little bit out of my league because they generally requested 2 to 3 plus years of experience, and I had 0. So I was desperate. I was looking for legal assistant jobs, paralegal type jobs, and I stumbled upon a few that I applied to, and I got one callback, and that's the company that I first worked for, and it was a legal executive assistant position. Basically, the general counsel, who was the first in-house counsel at that company, he had just been hired maybe a few months before he started interviewing me. He was looking for sort of like a legal assistant, a paralegal. But because the C-level executives also didn't have an executive assistant, they thought that they would tack on that because the work of the legal assistant wasn't going to take up 40 hours a week. So they wanted a legal executive assistant. And I think he knew that I was straight out of law school, I had no experience, but I was interested in going in-house. And he told me, frankly, just realize if you go in-house now, you're not going to be able to go back. And like I said in my pros and cons video, it's going to be hard because you are not necessarily going to learn and be an expert about one thing. You're going to be learning about all kinds of different things. So knowing the risk, I was willing to take it. And another thing that I would want to say, and I know I mentioned this before as well, but I was only paid about $55,000 in salary a year, whereas most first-year associates, I believe, make almost, if not 100K a year. So I was taking a significant price cut, or what I could be making if I went into a law firm, but it was definitely worth it for me. Another thing, like I mentioned in my tips on how to get a job video, I knew I was gonna be doing things that I didn't want to do. Oh, I forgot to mention I was also the office manager. I had to manage an office. I had never worked in an office before. I had to support the C-level executives, and then I also had to support my direct boss, which was the general counsel, in legal matters. So I was learning a lot of different things at once. I mean, I enjoy organizing and I enjoy planning. I got to plan events for the office, the holiday party, things like that, while also learning about things like corporate governance, board minutes, learning about contract drafting, NDAs, all the basics that you would need to know that you probably already would have known if you had worked in a law firm. And my boss was great. I really appreciate being under him. He was a great mentor. He taught me a lot, and he helped me to grow because he knew that I didn't know anything. So it was a great first experience, and I definitely would not trade it for anything else in the world. And he actually helped me find my current job, which is crazy. So I worked at my previous job for 2 years, and that was my first job out of law school, and then I knew I wanted to continue going in-house. So when I moved to New York, I thought it would be easy because right now I have 2 years under my belt. I can go in and get those corporate counsel positions. However, it was not that easy. I put out, like I said, those 4 resumes a day. I interviewed at a few places. I used recruiters, but I still didn't get any offers. And I was beginning to think, you know, did I make a mistake going in-house right away? Because now I'm pigeonholed sort of, and I have experience in little different things, but not one big experience I can say, yes, I know a lot about this or a lot about that. So it was difficult, and I think a lot of startups or a lot of companies are looking for their first in-house counsel or legal counsel or counsel. So they want to hire someone that has 5 to 10 years of experience to sort of lead the charge in organizing the legal department. And someone that has only had 2 years of experience definitely would not be able to do that. Okay, so this is gonna get a little complicated, but my current boss at my current company is not the boss that I had when I first started there. So we'll call her boss A, and my current boss would be boss B. So my former boss knew my boss A, and he randomly ran into boss A at a conference, and he just mentioned that, you know, I had a former employee who is looking for a job in New York and maybe you can help her out. So she contacted me and said, hey, you know, you want to come in for an interview? I would love to get to know you. And at that time, I, like I said, was working with a recruiter, and I was pretty far along in the process at this one company for a contracts manager position that I was pretty keen on taking, and I was almost sure that I would get it. And so I didn't really care much about this job. I was like, well, whatever, I'll just do it just in case. And I'm glad I did because I didn't end up getting the other job. So I interviewed, I got the position, and I started out as a temp. And it was a little scary at first because I wasn't a permanent employee technically. So when boss A left, I was basically by myself before boss B came in, and it was just me, and I would say that is the time that I learned the most. This position was one where I already started learning more and more because I was doing more work, whereas my other position, it was just a different type of company. And so when I was by myself, I had to make all the decisions. I had literally no one else to ask. I had no boss. I had, of course, outside counsel that we were working with previously, that if I didn't know something about a certain employment law that I could ask. But generally, I really had no one else to turn to. And I remember it was the end of the quarter, so sales, the end of the quarter is always crazy for sales because they want to get all their contracts in, and I was just like churning them out, and it was just crazy. But I was able to prove myself in the end. And so when boss B, my current boss, came in, you know, people were glowing. They gave glowing reviews about me. They said I'm a great person to work with. I was able to support the legal department, which was just me. And so when he came in, he made me full-time, and that's where I am now. So long story short, it took a while to get here, and it's definitely not an easy path, but I'm so glad I am here. I'm the type of person that work-life balance is very important to me. Work atmosphere is important to me, and I've just been so blessed to have great bosses. From my first boss in law school when I was doing a family law, to my first real boss in-house, and now my current boss in-house, I just have had great mentors, people who really advocated for me. They were understanding, they were willing to teach me and explain to me things, and I just felt like I had a great work experience. And I really, you know, I think in my should I become a lawyer video, it came off very negative because personally I'm not a huge fan of being a lawyer necessarily. I mean, the work that I do is pretty dull. I look at paperwork all the time, and yes, I will do a video all about what I actually do at work, because I know in my life as a lawyer video, it was kind of like I eat free food all the time, and you know, like, what do I actually do? So I'll talk all about that. But you know, the work is dull, but if the employees are good and your boss is good and you like your work environment and I get to go home at 6 p.m. every day, then I really cannot complain. And I am very blessed because it's a job that I don't dread going to on Monday. You know, when Sunday comes, people are like, oh gosh, the weekend's over, whatever, but I actually don't mind going to work. Dare I say I like it. I mean, of course, you know, like I said, the work itself is meh, but I like going to work. So that's my story and a little bit about my background, and now I kind of want to give you guys some tips if you are interested in going in-house. It's different for everyone depending on where you are. Are you just graduating from law school? Have you been, you know, working at a law firm? Are you thinking about going from a law firm in-house? And I would say my first piece of advice is obviously the traditional route, and probably the best route is to go from a law firm to in-house counsel. Like I said, you are an expert at a certain thing, you know the law firm life, you have learned a lot, you have a great foundation to build upon, and then you go in-house and you have those like 2 to 5 year experiences that they're usually looking for. However, like I said, it's not impossible to go straight in-house from law school like I did. It'll just take a little bit of time and you might have to take a lower position job like a legal assistant, so just be prepared for that. I would also say that it may be worth becoming a paralegal first and working your way through the system. I think you have to gauge if this is a company that will grow or will you be stuck in this legal assistant position forever. I think I knew that my boss was looking to grow me and just start me off in this position first so I could prove myself, pass the bar, and then he would sort of promote me to assistant counsel, which is what I became after that. So I think it really depends. Do you see yourself growing within this company? Then take the lower paying job, the lower position job, and then work your way from there because you may not have a choice. I would also say to look for smaller companies because these are companies that don't have a lot of competition. You're not going to start off right away at NBC because they probably have like a whole legal department that has like 10 plus lawyers and each lawyer does a certain job, and if you don't know anything, how are you going to get in there? Like for me, I basically was at a startup or a really young company that just got their first in-house counsel, my boss, the general counsel. So look for companies that maybe only have 1 or 2 people in the legal department and they are willing to invest time in you. A great resource is goinhouse.com. I think I mentioned that one before, where they post in-house positions and you can get email notifications. And as usual, networking. I know it's tough, but you know, when you're in law school, maybe you should network. You can try to do an internship at a company. I know a lot of companies have legal interns that are interested in going in-house. So those are great opportunities. My last piece of advice is that if you are working at a law firm or if you want to go to a law firm first and then go in-house, the best, in my opinion, things to practice would be M&A or mergers and acquisitions, some sort of transactional contract law, corporate governance, knowing how to deal with stock certificates, stock transfers, raising funds, how the whole corporate structure works, because a lot of those questions are things that you'll be working with when you're the first legal in-house counsel. If you want to work in tech, data and privacy law is very hot right now. Everyone's interested in, you know, what are the laws around data, what are the laws around privacy, things like GDPR, things that, you know, companies don't know much about. They would love to bring someone in-house that knows about that. Employment law is always one. I would say that a lot of the work that I do is employment law related because you're dealing with employees. Obviously, if you're a criminal lawyer, there are things that you can bring. I mean, my current boss was a litigator in securities, which isn't that transferable, but you know a little bit about the legal process. And I would say transactional work is the most important because generally a lot of the time you're going to be dealing with contracts or negotiations. So I hope those tips were helpful for you guys. As usual, please comment below. Let me know any questions that I can answer for you. A lot of you I know are not even starting law school yet or in law school, so it sort of feels like a long way to go, but start thinking about what kind of jobs you like. And I know going in-house, as people say, is the dream, but it may not be for you, and you know, you might have to go to a law firm first, or you may be blessed like me where you're able to get a job in the beginning in-house. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe for more content. Also follow me on Instagram, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.